I'm going to actually have quite a few interesting questions for you guys. But if you want to come and join us and come closer to the stage, we won't bite you. Now, one of the things about video and premium video, and even not such premium video, is it can actually be too good, which sounds like something that nobody would ever say to you. And one of the things we're going to chat about today to start with is balance between the consumer and the business. And we have Rob here who's going to talk a little bit about his experience building product, especially looking at what happens when we've got a window of opportunity. You have something you want to deliver and you may have to make trade-offs. So what happens with the amount of time you have to deliver something versus the qualities that you want to put into the product?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be at NAB and talk specifically about what quality is doing and impacting in the space. Like, I think it's a really complicated question. Certainly, as the streamers in the marketplace are looking to offer the best product, whether it's something on demand or it's something live, I think for years everybody's been talking about optimizing to the maximum capability of someone's bandwidth and device. And that's been the common practice. Mm-hmm. Kind of sniff out what that's capable, what kind of device it is. You pick your best quality format you think you can deliver and you go. And I think the interesting thing here today is with the technology available, specifically the technology IMAX is bringing to the table, there are these levels of perceived quality that when you get to a certain level, just people don't recognize anymore. And in a world where every packet, every piece of data matters, if you're over-delivering, you're kind of overutilizing and spending money you don't need to do as a service provider. And I think that's what's so interesting about what's happening today.
I think what Rob's saying, what cannot be measured cannot be optimized.
Okay.
So you first measure it, you define what's good enough, and then you set that as a target so you can really control. If something is not measurable, it's not controllable. Just from science and technology perspective.
Okay, so now, Rob, you've designed a lot of products in your life, and you have a product hat on. And what happens when someone says to you, here's this amazing quality video, but you have to make some trade-offs? What goes through your mind then?
In that space, trade-offs are being made all the time, right? Some in the moment and some just when you're doing your product planning. Mm-hmm. Right? Where are you going to invest your company time and resources? Those are all trade-offs. And I think what you're seeing more and more is as people are hitting scale with their streaming services, they're really looking to optimize as much as they are just push the boundaries of where they can grow, right? Everybody wants to run more efficiently. Savings and running a profitable business is more important than ever before. And so you have to be smart about what you do in terms of pushing quality to the point where it's just not an exercise in how high can you get, how good the quality can get. You have to be able to humanize that and understand like what is really appreciated and recognized by the audiences.
Okay. So can something be too good?
I think, like you said, when you have to create a trade-off, the trade-off is between a number of things. Cost is what Rob talked about. It's quality. Quality in terms of fidelity is one thing that you can think about. And there's latency as well that we talked about. Scale is another thing in terms of how many viewers can watch at the same time. It could be how many platforms it's available on. And when you're trying to push quality at a very high level and you have to make a trade-off in terms of not as many platforms can handle it or not as many delivery networks can deliver it or latency would be doubled, then in that case, the overall experience may diminish even though you're trying to push the highest fidelity possible. So I think that's one. The quality can be too good from that perspective that you're trying to theoretically achieve. The second thing is, like Rob said in the beginning, when you cannot perceive under the environment that you're watching the content. If you're watching it on a cell phone and you're not able to perceive certain details, or you're watching it at a specific distance, or you're watching it in a specific environment from brightness perspective and you can't really see those details, then what's the point of making those details available and putting more constraint on the delivery environments, on the processing environments, and everything else that creates a compromise at the end of the day. So yes, video can be too good, or you can aim to try and make it too good for your own downfall sometimes.
Okay. Now, I promise we're going to go into this in a few minutes, but I want to get back to Rob. So we've got great quality video, but we've also got the product owners, the product people, and then we've got engineering. And is that something, is this an area where you're going to have a lot of consensus, or are you going to have a lot of differences in terms of what people think about when they're seeing an opportunity cost happen? So is it is quality going to be something that the engineering department doesn't want you to do, or is it quality going to be something that the engineering department's like, go for it, do it?
I think go for it is absolutely, quality assurance in any engineering team is like typically top at their list.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, if you're talking live events or sports, if you have an issue in the moment, in some cases as a streamer, that's unrecoverable, right? You're at the final minutes of a game. You're at a clutch moment. Those are moments you can't give back to your subscriber. And typically, if you're not delivering reliable quality, then you're going to lose subscribers. I mean, that's the bottom line. So quality is part of the whole workflow.
Okay.
The question is, what do you do about it? How do you optimize it around it? What signals do you pay attention to? And I think, today, or for the most part, when people are doing quality optimization, you can't really do it at the level and the depth that you really want until the technology that's coming into the market now. What I mean by that is everybody has a certain eye. You could be a creator, a content creator, come into the space, and there's this term called the golden eye, where you look at a certain frame by frame, you watch the show you made meticulously over and over again. That's hard to do for a streamer at scale across all the content they're delivering. And certainly QA teams, even not systematic ones, but where there's still humans looking, make sure that something's a high quality, eyes on glass, it's hard to reproduce that. I think now with AI and the innovations that are out there, you can actually start looking at a frame level and discern between two different qualities at different tiers what is considered the highest quality. And in many cases, to the surprise of streamers, I think you can actually deliver something that maybe is less than you would normally deliver, but not perceivable by your audience. Knowing that, having that information in the moment by a frame and by a stream across the scale that you're delivering can save huge amounts of monies.
Okay. Now, in fact, Abdul, this would be a great time for you to explain the aspect of what Rob has just talked about.
Yeah. So, what I said before, what you cannot measure cannot optimize. So you are building the streaming service for humans on the other side. The consumers of content are humans. The success criteria is their perception and how satisfied they are and how engaged they are. Whether they come back to that platform again and again, or at the very least, they're not dissatisfied by the quality that they don't want to go to that platform anymore. So that needs to, if you want to optimize for that and optimize for that on a frame by frame basis or a scene by scene basis, which really pushes the optimization to the next level, then you cannot have humans do that. That means you need machine to be able to do that, which means machine needs to be able to perceive it like humans do. Now, there are a few ways of doing that. First way is to you actually model the neurons in the human brain and the eye and build a computer and algorithm that replicates that, which seems quite complicated, and it is complicated because human brain cannot be replicated from that way in a scalable fashion. So instead, what you do is you take a top-down approach to understand the behaviors of the human visual system. What's a human thinking? When you ask that person, what was your experience like? Explain to me in words. what is that person thinking? And you want to understand those behaviors and then build models that use the advanced technologies like deep learning to come up with that same answer. Because when you can come up with that same answer, then you can use that to build a feedback loop to make sure that in this environment, on this device, for this type of viewer, for this type of content, this is what good enough looks like. And let's just deliver that.
Okay, so now I know that it's hard to talk about something, and obviously people can go to the IMAX booth and look, and that would be an easy way to understand this. But Rob, do people actually know about the quality of the content they're watching? Will they look at it and kind of go, yes, that's good, or yes, that's bad?
I think the subscribers now are acutely aware of when they're getting something that's good and bad. They may not realize at all times, like whether that's their internet connection at the moment, whether that's the person or team providing that service they're on, or something that's going on with the source. I think that level of sophistication is actually there in the market. People are used to evaluating quality as part of their streaming service. Absolutely.
Okay, so is this just for premium service or for everything?
There are a lot of fast services that are in market. One, I was for years the head of product for, and I think everybody's concerned with the level and the quality of the service they're providing. The market's constantly challenging each other. Streamers are fighting for anything that's a differentiator. And so you as an operator are looking at things that are going to encourage people to come back more. And I think the norm has been that you over-index on providing the best thing you can, right? And that makes sense to some degree. But at scale, it doesn't always make sense. And prior to now, I would argue there hasn't really been a great system for at scale streamers to really understand what quality looks like as it's going out the door. After the fact, right? There's plenty of instrumentation in the market that tells you when you've had an outage or someone's rebuffering or there's some caching issues and stuff like that. But through your whole workflow to ensure that that quality is there and it's the right amount, not just the max amount that's needed in order to drive satisfaction, that's a new level of sophistication.
I think audiences, depending on the type of content, how much they pay, like, for example, fast services, what type of their affinity to the content, how much effort they have put into the environment that they have set up, the expectation may be different at the end of the day. Like anything else that we can measure the quality of, I would argue it's time to measure the quality of video in the same way. And when you can do that, then in a true way, you can measure, you can meet the expectations that hit the business goals at the end of the day.
Okay. That was, in fact, the next thing I was going to talk to is, so one of the problems is you're delivering video that is excessively good. There's a cost associated. So realistically, why deliver something that has too much of a good thing? Abdul, what kinds of costs or what kinds of savings or what kinds of measurements happen when you take a incredibly good image and you find the actually perfect match for the quality?
It costs millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions. Okay.
To deliver video at scale on an annual basis.
Right. Okay.
So somebody who is using encoders for compression and the decision that person, GoldenEye, for example, is taking in a lab using 10 to 20 different pieces of content, and that's broadly applied across the whole catalog and library and have a huge impact when it comes to the business success and profitability at the end of the day. So the process is fine because you have a human watching it and deciding what's the best way of sizing the video. Can you take it to the next level and have the technology do this dynamically for you on every single segment? And that would essentially save you tens of millions of dollars if you are doing it at scale. So we are not fundamentally changing the approach and the process, the way it's done. We are just taking it to the next level from efficiency perspective. So instead of somebody watching 20 minutes of content, deciding for the whole catalog what they need to do, you actually have the model built into the process so it can decide and virtually watch and decide on a segment by segment basis to do that again and again and again every single time to give you that efficiency.
Rob, is this a conversation you've had? Is this video cost too much to deliver?
Every time you sit down with the P&L and you're looking at your budget, you have to factor that in.
Okay.
The catalogs have gotten so big across the streamers at scale. Everyone's looking to optimize their costs in their whole technology stack. And it's not necessarily just tied to video. It's a bigger industry element when you're talking about running and managing a full stack, especially when you're, investing in the cloud. And the cloud, in its promise, should allow you to scale systems only the amount needed, right, in order to deliver that solution. And if you can optimize how much you're utilizing on top of the tools that the cloud providers give you, it's huge cost savings for doing that.
Okay, so we definitely are going to save you money if you're listening to this, and which is obviously important. The other aspect of this, though, is what happens when there's problems in the workflow? Realistically, if something happens where your video gets degraded, how do you figure that out, Abdul?
So to Rob's point earlier, if you have the ability to measure every step of the way, then you can identify where the issues are originating from, and you can pinpoint in a much faster fashion, fix them as quickly as possible, really. Right now, finding problems can be finding a needle in a haystack at the end of the day, which is quite challenging. Hundreds of issues can happen. There are a lot of handoff points from content origination all the way to consumption. So if you have the measurement approach deployed pre and post handoffs, that can tell you where the problem originated, so you can dig deeper into that at the end of the day. But then you can also take a proactive approach instead of reactive approach. So you design your system around that and use the same measurement as feedback loop so you don't get into those issues. So for example, why spend and send the bits that are not perceivable? Why load the system, the content delivery platforms and the decoding and so on and so forth, so it's more error prone? Why run the system so hot that it would create those issues? So you can take a more proactive approach using the same measurement, run it in a more efficient way, and run it in a less error-prone way.
Okay, now we also talked about quality issues can go wrong at the origin, at the delivery encoder, at the last encode. Rob, what are some of your experiences with this, and what has the feedback been from just viewers watching content?
I think that it is true that you can have issues through your whole workflow. So part of the offering that was so compelling about IMAX is that you have the flexibility to integrate monitoring at multiple points in that workflow, right? It gives you visibility into it. So the more visibility you have, the more chances you have to alleviate that challenge, switch to a backup, try to have it addressed. I think the trend has been, and to touch on one other, is that this move to kind of self-healing systems, where it doesn't require human intervention to fix, but the workflow itself knows how to course correct based on how it's monitoring itself, is starting to get to a level of, quality that, humans really can't do at the scale. It's starting to solve problems that streamers have. It could be a specific region they're running in. Now that many streamers are multinational, running live events, maybe hundreds, if not thousands of them in a month, across regions. It's just not practical to have teams sitting with eyes on glass on all of those things at all times. And so you're looking for tools that allow that quality to be checked by the system you've built, addressed, and then you'll ultimately find out in what your subscribers are telling you. They're not shy.
Okay. Now, they're not shy about a lot of different topics when it comes to viewing, but what about sports and live? So we've got two of the most kind of demanding types of streaming services around. What happens when you need to have that really precise measurement in terms of delivery and live?
Live you can kind of break down in a couple different buckets. And maybe in its simplest sense, I would say, you have a bunch of fast providers, free ad supported providers that are doing mostly virtual live channels, which is, they're programming content that they've already quality checked into linear channels for consumption, like people always thought TV was, right? No one thought that was going to be a paradigm for consuming. It was going to all be on demand and streaming, but of course it's widely popular. There's 20 plus different services that are out doing that. That has a different expectation from what I would say live. And some of those fast services do have some live, but mostly the premiums. So you have this combination of users paying real money on a monthly basis to get access to what is the most highly coveted programming on television, especially here in the U.S. is sports, whether that's the NFL or NBA or any professional program. And similar to my comment earlier in the panel, you don't get a lot of chances to get that right? You get one chance a year to make the Super Bowl right. And if you miss a minute and that minute is the first minute, people will seek out what other channel they can get to consume it. More often than not, those rights are non-exclusive, or even who has the rights is using a multi-channel distribution platform. You lose your opportunity in that moment. And so you want to invest in systems and technology that help ensure that people are going to have the best experience.
I mean, realistically, we have gone past the point where people can manually handle things. People cannot manually QA anything any longer. You've got these huge libraries of content. Abdul, we've also got the live quality. What is the key thing that people ask you about when it comes to measuring quality in a live environment, especially sports?
Because of the live nature of it and what Rob mentioned, identifying issues and fixing them in a live environment, time is critical. Every single second is critical. So what generally is of interest is identifying where in the delivery process from origination to playback the issue is originating from. And the sooner you identify that, the sooner you can ideally self-heal if there's an automated process, or an operator can go in and fix that. So that's the biggest thing that we generally hear is where the issue is originating from. So some sort of service level objective or expectation or agreement that is in place between different parts of the workflow. The second thing, I think what has not been done previously and what we are showing here and would love to talk to you on the show floor to talk to folks as well, is incorporating real-time perceptual quality measurement to optimize stream size, to deliver the premium quality at the right size. That's not been done before, I believe, and it's the first time we are showcasing how such a complicated process of measuring perceptual quality is being done in real-time fashion, and you're using that as a feedback loop to make the right decisions to size it, to proactively avoid issues.
I've got more questions for these guys, but does anybody here have a question before I continue on? No? No one? Okay. All right. So we've got the workflows that vary from company to company. Media companies have different workflows put together. And can you still go through different vendors and actually find where the errors are and find where the potential problems that have been created in the live or the VOD content?
Yes, you can if you set it up the right way. So what I mean by that is at the end of the day, what you're consuming as a human on the other side are pixels. So if you can get to pixels and watch like humans do, then everything else becomes a complication. And that's the approach that we use. Like if you use a specific transport mechanism, if you use a specific codec, if you use a specific encoder, all of that is to serve those pixels. So our goal is to get to those pixels in the most efficient way and watch them to identify any and all kinds of issues and track them every step of the way. So based on that approach, we can ensure that we can support all different types of codecs, all different types of formats, all different types of implementations and workflows.
Rob, what happens when a whole library needs to be re-encoded? What's the potential for problems?
I think the teams are constantly looking to update and re-encode libraries, like at scale.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it's unusual that a new format comes in or a new device or a new profile. And so at this point, the marketplace is used to having to do that.
Right.
Maybe sometimes you'll get a huge batch. Let's say we haven't entered Germany and we're going to move into Germany as a new market. And so there are way more complications that come into that mix with localization, language translation, whether you have the right dubs and subs. Do you have to do special credit titles for that? So there is a constant churn of evaluating, recreating files, reissuing those files that happens as well. And as new devices enter the marketplace, I mean, teams are typically looking to see what kind of performance is needed and what those devices can handle.
Okay. I've got one last question. And for both of you, if there's one question you would hope that somebody would ask you about your particular areas, what would it be? Abdul, I'll go with you first. In terms of you have customers, you have potential customers talking to you, what's the one thing you want them to actually ask you about?
How to deliver a premium experience that preserves creative intent, maximize engagement, and do it in an automated fashion.
Okay.
Using the most advanced technologies out there.
Okay. Rob?
I think mine always starts with the end user, the consumer, the subscriber of these services. When someone can come with an offer that allows you to deliver exceptional quality at the same time you're saving money as an operator, it seems like an unbelievable pitch. Like, oh, this person's coming in saying, I'm going to save quality. The way they're going to do it is we're going to deliver video that people think is not up to what it could be in the space. Mm-hmm. And I think that's no longer the case. I think, you think about when new formats came out like 4K and everything, everyone's like, yeah, we're streaming this game in 4K. And even though half the devices in market at that point when it first came out couldn't even support it. So then you're just pushing data over a network that people on their end device couldn't even consume. And I think what I like is we're really optimizing down to that subscriber to ensure that we can run a healthy business. We're not in any way compromising what we're offering as part of that. And, that's what draws me in the space.
Okay. So if you don't actually happen to believe these guys, there is a couple of demos you should come and take a look at the IMAX booth. And that way, and you can also obviously ask further questions, but come take a look and see the kinds of quality levels that they're putting out, as well as the savings in terms of the data rates on the images. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for this incredible short but dense conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.